for our third mystical tale about transformation and the great Mahasiddhas. We will examine today the most powerful of all yogis, Virupa. In this story, teacher and student come together for their final session. So as the last warm rays of the sun linger on the marble water pavilion, teacher and student sat to enjoy a cup of tea. With eyes closed simultaneously, they lifted their teacups and inhaled the fragrant infusion of sun-dried Kashmiri tea buds. Reaching behind her, the teacher picked up a small package and she handed it to her student with the request, "Before we begin this evening's lesson, I have a task for you. Would you mind delivering this medicine to Mr. Kalu in the village? He needs it for his wife. I'll give you directions to his home." Her student responded quickly, "Of course, no problem." Then silently he began to calculate the time that it would take for him to get to town, deliver the package, and to return. Having made his calculations, he stated, "Round trip, that should take me till about 8:30 tonight." "That's fine," she said. "Let's plan a class beginning at 9 p.m. And after class, you can complete your practice as usual on your own here in the pavilion. Oh, and here are the instructions for preparing the medicine. Make sure that Mr. Kaulu gets them." The youth struggled to contain his feelings. It seemed too much. There was always something extra that was added to his chores every day. And there was never anything, it seems, taken away. He felt stretched to the limits of his capacity, and he wondered how much more he could take. Now the class was at 9 p.m., he thought. So that means by the time I finish my chores and I complete my work for tomorrow and I do my personal practice, I'll be lucky to see my bed before 1 a.m. That means I'll get a whopping 4 hours of sleep. Why? He wondered. She never did anything without a reason. He knew he was fighting a losing battle with his anger. So he finished his cup of tea abruptly. He contained his anger, picked up the package and the instructions for Mr. Kalu, and stated, "I'll be back as quickly as possible." Observing his stiff back as he turned to walk in the direction of the village, she thought about the task she had taken on, absorbing a student's resentment while helping them to expand their boundaries. Never seemed more manageable, and she wasn't getting any younger. She snorted a half laugh at the irony of the situation. It appeared that she was destined to push her limits with this particular student. She wondered if this part of the training, the molding of a student, had been as hard on her teacher as it was on her. With that thought, she felt an utterly profound sense of gratitude for the wisdom that had been poured into her. Overcome with love, she tucked up her feet and legs in a pose conducive to meditation. Focusing inwards, she withdrew her senses from the world. She remained in a state of unbroken, single-pointed focus on the true nature of her teacher, herself, and the teachings. She only broke her concentration when she heard the voice of her protege say, "Teacher, I'm ready for our evening session." The youth was surprised to see her sitting in meditation in the very same spot from which he had departed several hours earlier. Now lit by the quarter moon and unmoving, she appeared inseparable from the marble pavilion itself. It was one of those magical nights where there was just enough moonlight to make sense of shapes and shadows, and still not quite enough to obscure the twinkling beauty of the nighttime stars. A chilly mist clung low to the ground. Temperatures dropped quickly at this elevation in the evenings. His teacher appeared unaffected by the chill. She only wore a light Kashmiri tunic to cover herself. Not sure if he was more concerned for his own comfort than hers, he asked if she would like to hold their evening session inside by the fire. Looking at him with warm emotion, she stated, "Of course, let's go inside." Uncertain as to the meaning of the look she just gave him, he extended his hand to help her up from the cold floor. He was surprised by the power he felt in her grip, as he knew her age. She got straight to the point, saying, "Yogi, for this evening session, let's consider Virupa." "What's a Virupa?" the yogi asked. His teacher responded, "Virupa is not a what, he's a who, and he just might be the most powerful yogi that ever lived." "Oh," said the youth, nodding as he found a few cushions and made a comfortable place for their evening chat by the fire. His teacher's quietly spoken words surprised him. "Thank you." It was a simple thank you, but it struck him deeply. He exhaled sharply through his nostrils. He understood this was the first real gift he had made to her today for all she had been teaching him. He had failed time and again to express gratitude. Then abruptly, she interrupted his thoughts with the words, "Don't overthink it. Now come into Viparita Karini, against the wall, and make yourself comfortable with some pillows. The only thing I want you to do is to put pressure at the level of the Anahata chakra as we examine some of the details of Virupa's life." Okay, here are the highlights of Virupa's life. Before he became Virupa, she said, he was a great philosopher, a magician, a teacher, a scholar, and a meditator. Like many of the other great adepts, the stories of his birth vary from one storyteller to another. We know that he was likely born in the 7th century, somewhere on the eastern side of the Indian subcontinent. And while he was still a young boy, he entered a famous center for learning called Somapura. It was a Mahavira in the north of Bengal. He was a gifted student, and very few could match the power of his mind. After many years of study at Somapura, after his teacher passed away, he left to become a student of Dharmamitra, also known as Jayadeva. This was the headmaster of Nalanda University. Jayadeva gave him the name Dharmapala, which means protector of the law. So student and teacher were very close, and in the tradition of the day, knowledge was passed in private classes just between the two of them. Of course, there were classes given to larger groups, but when it was a heart teacher giving instruction, it was generally just between teacher and student. So Jayadeva left instructions that he wanted Sri Dharmapala to be appointed as his successor should he pass away. Now, Jayadeva's passing came sooner than expected, and Sri Dharmapala was appointed the chancellor over the whole University of Nalanda, just as his teacher was before him. So now he took on the administrative duties of his teacher, plus he had the responsibility of teaching all the classes that were formally taught by his teacher, and he still kept his own daytime classes. He had no time at all for his own practice. So by night, he completed the unique methods of meditation and personal advices given to him by Jayadeva. One final important thing for you to know, yogi, is unfortunately, Jayadeva died before he passed on all of the crucial details, the crucial points of his wisdom to Sri Dharmapala. Focusing on her student, she asked, "Are you comfortable? Do you feel the pressure against your heart where you should be against your heart chakra?" The yogi responded, "Yes, to both questions, teacher." "Good," she said, "then I'll continue. You know, yogi, sometimes by the sheer power of our good deeds and the protection we give to others, the physical signs of a successful practice, well, they spontaneously arise. Without prior knowledge, these signs can easily be misunderstood. And this was precisely the case with Sri Dharmapala. He'd been practicing for 12 years. Yes, 12 years. And his old bones ached, and he was beginning to feel the weakness of old age. Late one night, after he had completed his recitations, he fell into a deep dream state. In one of his dreams, he saw a massive fire burning at the lower end of a valley and a flood rising from the upper end. He saw hailstorms, glaciers, and icicles and icebergs falling from the sky. He saw his teacher and his friends hanging upside down, some of them with their faces torn apart, noses cut off, eyes gouged out and dripping with blood. He dreamt of a great fire and then a great flood. So when these dreams came to Sri Dharmapala, he fell into a state of despair. He thought, "Enough. This is enough. I am too old. My body is frail and it's failing me. I can't continue and I seem to be doing it all wrong. My mentor is gone and I have no one to instruct me. I feel these years of practice, I haven't seen one single sign of accomplishment." He took the dreams as a sign of failure in his practice. Finally, he decided it was just too much, that he didn't have sufficient goodness to reach his goals in a single lifetime. He was discouraged, having worked so hard. He pushed himself beyond his limitations. In a fit of angry rage, he threw his counter into the toilet. And then he decided he was going to quit his night job and concentrate on administration and teaching and writing. He didn't know that his dreams were indications that he was about to reach a breakthrough in his practice. Drastic changes in his subtle winds were causing the telltale signs that he had actually completed the first 2 paths of his training, and he was about to complete the 3rd one. His winds were beginning to enter the central channel. And what was missing was some essential knowledge. The problem was his teacher had died too soon. So how could he know that the raging fire at the lower end of the valley symbolized his subtle body's raising of psychic heat? And the imagery of the flood was the conceptual mind's reaction, thinking that he must battle the fire and put it out. Finally, he was about to achieve the peak experience he'd been striving for his entire life, direct contact with ultimate reality. So he was afraid to continue on, having thrown his mala into the toilet. But there's a beautiful story that an angel appeared before him in his dreams, following his rash behavior. And in his dreams, she held her hands out to him, and in them was a crystal counter. She said to him, "Child of happiness, why are you troubled? Keep up your practice. If you saw clearly that things are neither this nor that, you would let go of your wandering critical thoughts. Strip your mind of illusion." "Well, young yogi," the teacher said, "what do you make of Virupa's story so far?" "I like it," he said. "No," she asked. "What lessons do you see in his story so far?" "Oh, okay. This one's kind of obvious. It's easy to forget that even mental practices are coming from seeds. And if we forget that fact, then we're going to get all tangled up in emotions, it's just like any physical thing we want when we don't understand where it comes from." "Pretty good," she said. "Do you see anything else?" "Well, maybe the friends and teachers with the faces torn off and hanging upside down. Maybe that's also a part of letting go of the things we hold on to in the wrong way. Also, I think it's saying that you could save yourself a lot of trouble if you get the proper instructions from your teacher before they leave you. So if you have all the goodness you need, things will happen regardless. Basically, you should know what you're doing or it won't work." "Good. Anything else?" She waited patiently for him to link this story to his own behavior earlier in the evening. Finally, in a somewhat abashed tone of voice, the yogi said, "Anger feels like the most natural response when we're pushed to expand our capacity. But it's probably the most stupid response we can make. Like the lady in his dream said, we need to ditch our critical thoughts. They are the illusion. And by the way, the toilet could be a metaphor for the mind and the thoughts that it is thinking when anger is overtaking your mind." "Not bad," she complimented. "Let's go back to our story." So Sri Dharmapala took up his nighttime practice once again, while serving the needs of the university by day. It wasn't long before he had a breakthrough in his practice. The experience was so powerful that Sri Dharmapala opened his Ajna chakra, his psychic eye. He gained the siddhi to see into the minds of others and to know what they would be forced to experience in this life in the future. Sri Dharmapala was unstoppable. What was happening to him was exactly like those games you like to play every day. Every day he's leveling up For 6 days in a row, he gains a new level each day, and with it come new realizations. When the wheel that spun him into those realizations finally stops, his gratitude towards his teachers was so deep that he threw a party. Now, his assistants, they were really alarmed by his strange behavior. As the days and the weeks passed, his behavior seemed to just continue to deteriorate further. Finally, it all came to a head one day as it appeared that he was eating the pigeons of the university. Their great protector of the law was breaking all the rules. Concerned, they called a meeting with all the department heads. Everyone agreed this behavior looked terrible for the university. They confronted him about eating the pigeons, and he simply looked at them and said, "Pigeons, what pigeons did I eat? Bring me their bones." And then, holding out his hand, they put the bones in it. He snapped his finger with the other hand, and the bones became birds and flew away. Still, they formally requested him to step down from his position as chancellor. Sri Dharmapala accepted their request. He stripped himself of his official clothing and placed his belongings in a pile. And then he said, "Going forward, my name is Virupaksha." The scholars were confused. He didn't defend himself at all. Why not? He simply named himself the ugly one, or the one with the strange eye. In Sanskrit, V can mean ugly, and Akasha means eye. So altogether, it means the one with the strange eye. In some texts, to have two eyes means to be beautiful. To have one or three categorizes one as ugly. So after naming himself the ugly one, he walked naked from the university. What he does next, well, that's even stranger. He walked to a local flower shop, bought some flowers, and decorated his hair. He picked up some leaves, and he covered his body with leaves. So he's got beautiful flowers in his hair and leaves all over his body. And then he purchases some radishes from a vegetable seller, and he stuffs his mouth with them, and then he stuffs them under his armpits. And he goes around crying out, "I'm wicked." The university was so scandalized by his behavior that they officially dismissed him from the university. Virupa then makes his way to the Ganges River. He looks at the river and he says, "River, you are pure, and I am not." When he arrives on its bank, he says, "I do not deserve to touch your holy water. Just give me a dry path." Now, unbelievable as it seems, with his command, the waters of the Ganges River part. And he walks on a dry path between the two to the other side. Astonished, his students and colleagues realize who and what they have just lost in terms of wisdom. They cannot walk his path on the riverbed, so they remain on the opposite side, begging him to return. But Virupa, with his psychic eye, has more important things to do. So he continues on his journey. "Okay, Yogi, come and sit upright. I want your opinion of this story." "Wow," the youth responded, "that is so wild. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, I don't know for sure, but I think this leveling up thing is totally unusual. So what happened to him could be due to the incredible goodness that he piled up over the years of teaching and taking care of others. So once he let go of his anger and he attacked his practice with joy and confidence, the toilet, so to speak, the toilet of his mind, so to speak, it turned into something unstoppable, like an unstoppable fountain of gold. I think that's the big takeaway for me. So maybe results that come from a mediocre practice, maybe you can get results from that, but it's like you've won the lottery when you kind of link positive emotions like joy and confidence to your practice. I really don't know about the eating the pigeons thing, but maybe it's a metaphor for devouring desire, like eating desire itself. But then again, it just seems to be a part of all this crazy stuff he was doing. It seems to me he was trying to get kicked out of the university. You know, he's the top guy. If he just resigns, then what would happen is he would take tons of his students away with him, and it would disrupt the whole university. Like, it looks bad on the university. This way, it's just him. And everybody can just say, well, you know, Virupa, he went crazy. Or Sri Dharmapala, he went crazy. And no one wants to follow a crazy person. Personally, I think he was fearless. His whole life, he's been a rational, disciplined guy. He's been like the best of the best. And now here he is, running around naked, like grabbing flowers to put in his hair and pasting leaves on his body. Kind of opens your heart to feel like sort of more compassion for the guy. And then again, he kind of reminds me of the hippies from the 60s. They were all about being expansive and open and really engaged with life. Now, why he stuffed his mouth with radishes, it's a mystery to me. I know meditators stay away from garlic, but I don't know about radishes. And then, of course, when he arrives at the Ganges River and he tells the river itself to make way for him, oh my goodness, now we know this guy has got cities. I know he called himself the ugly one with the third eye, and that indicates that he's got maybe a psychic eye, but you can't really tell if someone can see into your mind, right? But seeing somebody with the power to part the Ganges River, wow, that's undeniable proof that he's got cities. I think right there, that proves that Virupa was a true master. And then the other thing is, I think we got two systems here that bring the same result, but they're kind of uneasy partners when it comes down to it, because one seems very logical, like the system of going through the university, and it's explainable. But what Virupa was doing at nighttime, I mean, that doesn't seem logical at all. It seems like his daytime job would lead to incredible realizations. But really, it was his nighttime job that drove his whole success. Wait a minute, maybe that's not right. But that's the way it looks. I know you need both, but how they work together, that's kind of a mystery. And when they do work like they did for Virupa, I don't think people can understand what's going on. They might have enough goodness to see someone who looks crazy like Virupa. Like he looked crazy to so many people, but it's like they're like a dog who can only see a chew toy and not a pen. And because it all seems too weird, I think it was really, really important to separate Virupa, who's the adept, from the institution, from Sri Dharmapala, so folks didn't lose faith in everything. So I think really Sri Dharmapala was playing his role as a protector of the law, maybe when he seemed to go crazy. And then one other thing, he appears to be running around with all the energy of a child, like a kid. And, just before this happened, like a few days before it all happened, he was complaining that he was too frail and old and that his bones ached. Yes, I like that part too, his teacher responded. As an old lady getting close to 70, I can appreciate the difference between what his body felt like before he leveled up and what it perhaps felt like afterwards. But I have one more question about this part of our story before we move on. What do you think his nighttime practice was all about? Well, said the yogi, he was counting something. I know that because he threw his counter into the toilet. So I know that it was an outer practice like yoga. Ah, nice, she commented. And what happened? Hesitantly, he responded, well, Sri Dharmapala had some dreams. Yes, she said, and who came to him in his dreams? An angel, he responded. The yogi felt like he was being led down a path somewhere, but the map wasn't quite clear. His teacher could see his confusion. So she took him the rest of the way to make the connection. Haven't I always tried to get you to see the special messages in everything around you? To see the people and things around you as extraordinary? Yeah, so he questioned. Well, she said, this is the result of that practice. Extraordinary beings start to appear to you, and they give you advice. Even your husband could appear as extraordinary. So we know that Sri Dharmapala was working hard to meet unique beings, and then he achieved the first goal given to him by his former master. He met in his dreams an angel, and she gave him some advice. And what was the advice? She told him that what he was looking for wasn't self-existent. She said, the angel you're looking for doesn't exist, and so you'll never be able to find her. You must understand emptiness. You must understand that the extraordinary being, it comes from inside you. You don't have to look any further than your own mind. Oh, that's cool, the yogi responded. And what's the second goal? She smiled as she said, it's to become them. Really? Virupa's such a weird looking avatar. her student responded. I would never choose to look like a pot-bellied naked guy with bulging eyes and flowers in my hair. But what if I told you, she said, that his huge belly and his bulging eyes were a code used by artists to explain the inner quality of energy like chi and power. Oh, I get it, her student responded. He wears flowers because only someone with that much power could be that fearless. Like nobody's going to mess with him about his flowers. Not bad, young one, she said. I have one more fantastic story about Virupa. Listen closely to the details because everything is in the details. And then we'll see how much you remember about what I taught you. Here's the story as I heard it told. So at this point in his life, Virupa is in his late 70s, long gone from his previous life as Sri Dharmapala, the vice chancellor, writer, and teacher. In this story, we find him on a journey to the south of India. He's seeking out his student, Krishnapada, and he's planning to save the lives of thousands of animals just by the way. So at midday, he stopped at a tavern. He stopped to order a plate of rice and have some wine. Now, with a skeptical look, the barkeep asks him, "Do you have money to pay for this?" Virupa said, "I'll pay when I'm satisfied." She didn't believe that he had the money, but she fed him anyway. And when he finished his wine, he ordered more. She refused to give him more, asking once again to be paid. Virupa responded, "I'll pledge you the sun as my payment." And so he takes his ritual dagger. He finds the line between the darkness and light and he stabs it. He says, when the sun causes the shadow of that house to cross this line, I'll pay. Satisfied, she serves him more wine and more wine and more wine. He keeps drinking until he has finished off all the wine in the tavern. And still the shadow has not crossed the line. The sun is not moving in the sky. Virupa has pinned the sun and it cannot move. So Virupa continues with his drinking spree. He drinks 500 elephant loads of wine. He drinks for 3 days and the sun shines continuously the whole time. That means there's no sleep, there's no rest for the people of the town. They were miserable with exhaustion. Because when Virupa stopped the sun, they lost their clock. They had no way to keep track of time. The unbearable heat, it withered their crops, the crops in their fields. It shrank the lakes and the rivers. Now the region's king was getting mighty concerned about this sun that had not gone down for 3 days. He and his ministers couldn't figure out what was going on. Finally, the answer came to him in a dream. It's the yogi Virupa. He's at this tavern in this town over here. You've got to go pay his bill, or he'll keep the sun in the sky. So the king travels to the town. He finds the tavern. He sees Virupa and says, "Look, if I pay your bill, will you release the sun?" Virupa agrees. The king settles his account, and Virupa pulls the knife from the floor. And he releases the sun to pass its course in the sky. Now, yogi, what do you think? Oh, but first, come back into Viparita Karani. You can lie down on the floor with your feet against the wall. This is just a yin yoga pose. We want to put pressure on the Anahata chakra. So the yogi did as he was asked. Then he took his time responding. Well, there are a couple of messages here, I think. Power is a big one. Virupa controls the elements, at least water and fire. He's demonstrating that he is more powerful than a king as well. He has power over what typically has power over us, like drinking alcohol. He might be showing us also that true power comes from within. Because he doesn't look powerful, he's just this guy in a dhoti. But he's more powerful than kings. A king comes to him, right? And he's so powerful that the king pays for his bill. Never heard that before. Then his student says, and when you told me that he pinned the knife between the darkness and the shadow, the sun there, I thought about the Triveni in the subtle body, where the left and the right channels feed into the central channel. I thought maybe the message was about psychic heat and pranayama and those practices that increase psychic heat. I know you told me one time that wine symbolizes amrita, the nectar of immortality. And I know that when psychic heat flares up, the amrita flows down, which gets the winds into the central channel. But I really don't know what it means beyond showing a connection between the inner and the outer world. Very good insights, young master, she praised him. Perhaps it has to do with suspending the way we usually look at the world. Everything Virupa does is so powerful that our minds don't know what to make of it. He stops our usual patterns of thought, which helps us break through our limitations and our usual patterns of behavior and emotions. And then we can push through boundaries. His power helps to prevent the typical response of anger. In the presence of his power, even kings are too afraid to be angry. So when anger is transformed into wisdom, it has this quality of being unmoving and unchanging, like the color of the blue sky. And this is the power of Virupa. This is the power he embodies, the steadfast capacity to focus on luminous wisdom, the luminous wisdom of ultimate reality. The absence of anger has a quality of peace and stability. And when we're without anger, the mind's capacity to focus is unshakable. Anger is said to run in the sun channel, the right-hand channel, and it's closely linked with the Anahata chakra and the pranavayu. When the disturbing emotion of anger is present, everything inevitably changes. Our face becomes red, our body begins to shake, and the friend that we're angry with becomes our enemy. When you put pressure, as you are doing now, on the Anahata chakra, and you think loving, compassionate thoughts, you increase your capacity to focus. You increase your capacity for wisdom. If ever you start to feel tight here in this place, it's important that you ease off your practice. Spend more time outdoors, enjoying the big, beautiful blue sky. Spend time journaling about things you feel grateful for. Think of heartwarming images of maybe baby animals. Love opens the heart, but only wisdom can hold it open forever. When that happens, our diamond body begins to form. So breathe here through the Anahata chakra. Breathe out and in a beautiful, spacious blue sky light of the Apana Vayu. When you think about the Prana Vayu, think of Virupa. Think of the Anahata chakra. Think of the stillness of peace. And think of an unshakable, steadfast absorption in ultimate reality. Now, yogi, please release your pose and come and sit beside me. The final legend of Virupa that I have for you today is this. Some say he never left this world. He merely sat down to meditate in the posture of holding back the sun. Some say he turned into a stone statue, while others tell us he dissolved into the stone itself. Virupa has all the gifts of a peaceful, open heart. He's fearlessly compassionate. He's courageous and luminous, and engaged with life in the deepest possible way. All of his qualities come from the fact that his mind is immersed in the wisdom that is unmovable and changeless. So repeat after me. I have the mind that is immersed in the wisdom that is immovable and changeless.